Hey, welcome to MAddOG'S After Show. You're along for a lap with the Mad Dog and Cole, the animal, Farrell.
Why is everything fast from Oklahoma?
I decided to fly through the air and live in the sunlight and enjoy life as much as I could, and that's just what I'm doing.
Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm. What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure? Stay calm.
Man, here we are starting lucky number 113.
It's a good number.
Yes, sir. Those ever inspiring words from Mr. Evil Knievel. Flying through the air, living in the sunlight, and enjoying life.
Yes, and of course, we can't be enjoying life and living in the sunlight without doing two jobs at once, much like our first responders and our brave men and women in the military. Literally allow us to do this podcast, keep our freedoms free, and keep us safe when we're out having fun.
Yeah, and special shout out to our veterans and, of course, the families of those that gave all our MIA and KIA. Deep respect for y'all. Thank you so much. While we're thanking people, be sure to check out our great partners and sponsors, Kicker Performance Audio. Find them online, kicker.com. Bomber Eyewear. Find them online, bombereyewear.com. Assault UTV, Assault ATV, Assault Industries. Find them online, assaultind.com. Of course, the Premix Podcast. Find him on Instagram, the @ ThePremixPodcast.
Wow.
Yep. Shutter and Whirl Media. Find her on Instagram @Shutter and Whirl and click the link in her bio for her website. Hey Keeks Marketing. Find her on the webs, heykeeks.com, on Instagram @HeyKeeksMarketing.
Wow, look at that timing.
How's that
God.
for timing?
That was
What's
incredible.
Holy cow.
What's up?
How are you, brother?
Dude, I'm good. How are you? I gotta see what I got going
Awesome.
on here.
Jumping on to say hi. I haven't seen you in forever, Scotty.
What's up, Cole Swindale?
Dude, awesome to see you. Thanks for coming on today.
Absolutely, Cole Trickle. I'm trying to, I got nothing new. I got no new. It's Colt Irvin, but he's Kristen Beats' husband, so I guess that's not you. Unless you're a left-handed pitcher.
No, I can't even throw a ball, so I wouldn't worry about that.
I can't throw a ball either.
It's not possible.
He's built more like a goalie or a catcher.
Less moving, less lateral motion.
How we doing? How are you doing, Cole?
Hey, good. So I owe you a dedication or something, but
Oh, really?
I respect the heck out of Christopher Bell and all that he does on the dirt track, right? And now my mother-in-law has like total crush on him. She's like, "Oh, he's so cute." My mother-in-law just turned 70. She's like, he might be the best looking one in the field. And then I saw your post the other day. I'm like, all right, there's Oklahoma pride, and I like that.
Yeah. So he's the only driver in the Cup Series from Oklahoma to win. So
that's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, you think about how long NASCAR's been around, 76, 77 years, and he's the only one from Oklahoma to win. So,
well, hopefully this is a new trend, setting in the right direction.
Yeah, I hope he wins the championship. I mean, he deserves it. He's a hell of a wheel man. I mean, my favorite driver is Kyle Larson, but just because he can drive anything, I think if he wanted to try to ride motorcycles, he could do that too. But man, Christopher Bell, he still looks like a little kid, but he's like 30. But he's going to win a championship before too long.
Yeah, good equipment too.
Yeah, for
He's
sure.
a nice guy, so
yeah,
it'll happen.
Cole actually started the credits out with a shout out to Oklahoma.
I did.
With his dry spot. Why is everything fast from Oklahoma?
Well, I like that.
Everyone fast.
I like that. I claim Oklahoma because I've been here since I was probably 8 years old, even though I was born in South Dakota. But it's Oklahoma's just different. I don't know. I like it. But yeah, he's fast. I don't know. Shane Carson was a sprint car driver from here back in the
true.
day.
Yep.
He's good. Ronnie Jones, one of my heroes. He's from Oklahoma City. There's a handful of others, but man, it's pretty cool to be from Oklahoma, I guess. I consider myself an Okie.
Yeah. No, you are. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Well, you know, and there's a lot of great things in Oklahoma. Scottie Deubler, the
Tornadoes.
Oklahoma Mile, the tornadoes,
Oklahoma City Thunder.
Tulsa King, I guess. I don't know. I've never seen it.
Yeah.
Stillwater Designs,
Oh yeah, kicker right
Kicker
there.
World Headquarters.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, I was gonna grab my old kicker too. I got out in the shop. I got 4 12s from like probably 1988 when I had them in my lowrider pickup. I still have the 12s.
Nice.
That's cool.
They say kicker on the little center part.
Outlasted the pickup.
Yeah, no shit. A couple of them. I want to put them in something, but I just don't even know what to use or where I'd put them.
Need to put them in your Super Dodge.
Yeah, I don't have a Dodge anymore.
Oh,
I know I'm in a Honda Accord, so there's just not room for a real good for 12s.
You only need 2 seats. There's only you and
That's
your girl.
true. Yeah, it's just me. Yeah, and girlfriend. Yeah, backseat the boombox.
Yeah, there you go.
Man,
there you go. You got the whole trunk and back seat. So
there you go. Yeah.
So
all right, I'm jumping off camera. I'm right here, boys.
Get back to work, Cole. Shit.
All right.
I mean, golly. Hey man, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too, Scotty.
Some of that may make it in because we've been recording the whole time. So
Well, that's all right.
I was
I was all over the place.
Yeah, I was like, bring Scotty in right away because he's the ultimate pro. Like he just jumps in and flows, and I don't even feel like I need to talk really. But but yeah, if we happen to cut in somewhere in here, I don't know what Kelsey will do. But ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Hollywood, Scottie Hollywood Deubler, welcome.
What's up, Mad Dog? Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, for sure, dude. It's, I wanted to cue in some like presidential music because Cole and I were talking about it and we thought it'd be rad to get you on to do kind of a not just American flat track, but flat track State of the Union address, if you will, as we're getting probably up towards what'll be mid-season. And so, and then it's always good. Cole obviously had Oklahoma on his mind in the intro, and you're from Oklahoma. And, I mean, yeah, it's just good. Stillwater's in Oklahoma, Kicker's in Oklahoma. So, anyway, I don't know where I was going with all that, but welcome, man. How's things going?
Man, I appreciate it. It's good. Like you said, State of the Union. So we're basically 5 races deep in the Progressive American Flat Track Series. So we're almost at the 1/3 mark. It's kind of have a 1/3. Kind of hard to have a 1/3 if you're having 16 races. So we're getting up there. It's been short tracks the whole way. And round 7 is Lucas Oil Speedway, a new track for us over in Wheatland, Missouri. And Lauren, they're calling these things short tracks, but they're big short tracks. I mean, they're 3/8 miles, so they're just not a half mile. I don't. The term short track really isn't fair to some of these tracks we've been to. Chico, for example, that's a fast track. I mean, when you can host a sprint cars there, to me, that's not a short track. A motorcycle short track is tiny, it's tight. Like the Daytona, that's a true short track. Or like like the old Springfield short track. Those are little bitty short tracks. These are on the bigger side of short tracks or on the smaller side of half miles. So it's been a lot of short tracks so far. And we got one more short track and then we get to our first half mile, which is in Lima. And we have the new triple challenge going into effect at the first Lima half mile race. So that's kind of where we're at with Progressive American Flat Track right now. And, the competition is so good.
Yeah.
To me, not only just the singles class like it has been for the past few years, but the Super Twins class is really tight now too. Taking out the Indian and taking out the purpose-built motorcycles. Now they're using stock engines out of production-based motors. It's really changed the playing field. And coming into the season, I know I'm going on for a little while, but coming into the season, everybody thought that Dallas Daniels was going to walk away with everything, me included. I mean, you take out Jared Meese and you take out the Indian, you hand the keys to the truck over to Dallas Daniels, the most
Yeah.
dominant rider in the Indian era that's not on an Indian. So Dallas went out there and won the first 2 rounds, doing what he's supposed to do. But now Briar Bauman has won the last 3 rounds on the Harley Davidson XG 750, and that is probably the most impressive thing I've seen so far. Again, we're only 6 races deep, but it's just been crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, we touched on that, or I touched on that when we recapped Daytona and Sonoy, not Sonoya,
right.
Sonoy.
That's a hard one.
It was my first time there, but one of the real highlights for me, especially after Daytona, and haters gonna hate on American Flat Track about the purpose-built versus production-based engines,
Mhm.
but I personally think that it was a great move by American Flat Track. Um, and you don't see people um, bitching in F1 because they have a car budget cap or an engine budget cap. And when you take, like in the case of the Indian, where you have an entire facility does built and operational just for a race bike that's not homogenized, which, folks, that means there's not a production unit available. Um, I think you've taken a lot away from the sport because you've gone to the whoever's got the biggest billfold or is willing to lose the most amount of money for the $12 trophy wins.
Yeah, I think, I can see both sides of it. I understand the haters, and I understand, the Indian, arguably the best flat track machine ever built. Well,
Yeah,
you think about that too. Before the Indian, the XR 750 Harley Davidson was arguably the best flat track machine ever built. Before that, let's go ahead and throw the Bultaco Astro, the best short track motorcycle ever built by a factory. So take those out of the equation, and now um, I think I'm kind of going all over the place here, but take the Indians out. To me, it's not fair. If Indians were still involved, let's back up one year. If Indians was still involved, if I wanted to go race an Indian, I can't, Lauren, because I can't just go to Indian and buy one. They only made
right.
50, and then they made 10 more. Rumor is there's a few more than that out there. So that let's just say there's 60 out there. I can't just go buy one from a dealership. I can't just go buy one from, a garage sale or, a swap meet or anything like that because they're not available. So, you know,
Yeah,
that's the only thing that I see of getting rid of the Indian is because now people can go out and buy engines from eBay. They can go buy them from a dealership. They can go buy them from a salvage yard. They can go buy them from your neighbor down the street, put them in a flat track bike, or even use that chassis if they would choose to, and go racing. And, it's kind of like, back in the day with NASCAR, you win on Saturday, you sell on, or you win on Sunday, you sell on Monday. Same
right.
idea now because the power plant that's in these motorcycles are in, production based motorcycles, and you can go to the dealership and buy one if you choose to. They don't look necessarily just like them in the Super Twins class. In the AFT singles presented by Kicker class, they look just like the 450s you can buy off the showroom floor.
Yep.
So we have a little bit of a mix right there. And, honestly, I understand the haters. I understand, that they want to see the best motorcycle out there. Well, if there's only 50 of them available and everybody that's racing one has a backup, that drops it down to 20 or 25. And then some of the guys bought them just to put them up on a shelf just to look at. So that takes away 10 or 15 more of them. So do you want to see, 12 Indians out there battling each other, or do you want to see all these other brands out there? And yes, the number of riders is down right now, but people have the opportunity to go out there and, and build something or buy something. And, you know, maybe the number of riders will continue to grow now that people, maybe you can afford the sport again. I mean, if you couldn't afford an Indian or if you couldn't get an Indian, you weren't going to race.
Right.
Simple as
And
that.
I think that's a big part of it is on my end is looking at it from the grassroots side. The Indian was unobtainium. You know, you couldn't
Right.
buy one. You couldn't if you were walking around with 150 grand cash, you still couldn't buy one.
You
And
you might
it's
you might be able to rent one, but
right.
you're not going to buy one. And then if you crash it, then and then also replacing it and finding parts for
Sure.
those things. Rumors were that there were no parts available. I don't know how true those rumors were, and I don't know how long they continued to make parts for those things. And the weakest link, the only weak link that those Indians had was the clutches, and it's because they're using like a clutch basket off of a 450 on this great big 750, and so you're going to go through clutches like probably want to race. I mean,
Right.
some of the fast guys are putting them in there just because the clutch is so important, and getting off the line is important. But it's just it's a tough one to swallow for some of the diehard fans. I get it, but
Yep.
let's just not frown on American Flat Track for making this decision. Let's just see what happens. And again, I love the Indian. I think it's the most beautiful flat track bike ever built. But I mean, the people in the generation before me can say that about the RS 750 Honda or the XR 750
Yep.
Harley. And at some point, they progress. Everything progresses, and if we're not progressing, we're going backwards or we're staying stagnant. So let's just see what happens before we start, being upset at American Flat Track for a while. Let's just see what
Yeah.
happens.
Well, and I really believe that it was a necessary step to entice other manufacturers to get back into it. I mean, probably most recently, before, in my mind, anyways, before Indian, and actually kind of bookended by Harley, was the Kawasaki, which I'm hardcore Team Green guy,
Right.
and I mean, Cowie had some great runs there in that time frame. And then, like you said, you go back to the Honda days, and it's your Bull Taco go all the way back. Bull Tacos and the Rotax, I think when it came out was like, oh my God, this new machine is just so incredible. And um, so I think it's just progression, but it's important in my opinion, dealing with the fans, week in, week out. Um, they're grassroots people,
Oh
right?
yeah. Yep.
And it's important that they stay in touch with their grassroots people and however they need to do it, whether it's putting a production based motorcycle in the field and more manufacturers or whatever they do, but you don't want to go the way that some of these other professional motorsports have gone, where they've lost so much touch with what's real and grassroots that and I'm not going to name the motorsports because one of them happens to own American Flat Track, but they've just lost touch with reality. I mean, they've got all these cookie cutter cars and it's disappointing. I mean, I turned that particular series off several years ago now because I'm like the days of Smokey Eunuch and Darrell Waltrip and all those guys, and the creativity was completely taken out. Whereas American Flat Track has made a step to bring the creativity back in, and people may say, "Oh, that's a bunch of bullshit." But then you look, I know at least what 2 or 3 of the 6 races so far this year. There's been at least 5 brands in the top 10.
Absolutely. And the top 3 in the points right now, you're looking at a Harley Davidson on top of the
Yeah,
points, which hasn't happened since the XR left us, before 2017. Then you got a Yamaha with Dallas Daniels. You got Davis Fisher riding a KTM for the first time ever, and he's having a great season so far. And then you've got, the Royal Enfield. Dalton Gautier was riding it. Now Maxwell is on it. Johnny Lewis started that adventure. He was in the mix at Ventura and again at Chico. So the Royal Enfield's still a competitive bike, even though it's down on horsepower. I think there's certain tracks where that thing's going to shine. You've got Honda getting back in here, the big red Honda twin team with the Honda
Yep.
Trans Alps 750. Yeah, he's not in the top 5 in the points yet, but he's got a shot to get up there. And then you've got Dan Bromley, the only Suzuki in either class, and he's riding this 800cc Suzuki. And if you don't look out, if you don't start paying attention to that brand, I think that's a very strong motor. It's competitive right out of the box. And with Dan Bromley, the only one out there, he has nobody to bounce ideas off of. He's in a, I don't even know what chassis he's in right now, but I think for him to start shining right out of the box at Daytona, okay, that Daytona sometimes is a one-off, and sometimes it's a fluke, but then he's backed it up with some other good finishes, and winning a challenge race on the Suzuki is incredible. And I think they're affordable. I think we're going to see some more Suzukis before too much longer as our sport goes through trends. Right now there's only 2 Harley Davidsons out there, and they're first and fourth in the points. Briar Bauman, Brandon Robinson. I think we might see a few more Harleys showing back up. And then, like you said, there was Kawasaki's. When Brian Smith was winning on Kawasaki's,
Yep.
a bunch of people went out there. And Bill Warner, who's the winningest crew chief in American flat track history, when he built his first one and put Brian Smith on there and a handful of other riders, just to show he got that engine off of eBay, for $300 or whatever it was. It was a motorcycle, but to go out there and run up front, well, there's still a lot of Kawasaki's laying around. So,
Oh yeah.
I think we're kind of in a weird spot with a lot of the big names have retired. I mean, there's still some big names out there, but the people that I raced with have pretty much all retired. I stopped 20 years ago, but the people when I started announcing American Flat Track, there's only a couple of those guys left. So as the older guys walk away, newer guys are going to step in and they're going to hop on something and they're going to carry the torch for us, and
Yep.
and there's a great group of riders in that singles class right now, and it's like, when are those riders going to make this step up? And unfortunately, we lost Cody Kopp to go road racing. Will we see him at a more American flat track races possibly this year, and possibly on a twin? We'll see. I mean, he can do whatever he wants now. He has no contract with he was riding for the Red Bull KTM team. They he won 2 championships with them. They leave, so that left him stranded. So he went road racing, unfortunately, but there's still a big group of riders that are getting seat time, that are getting developed, that are ready to move up to the Super Twins class. And like I said, it's just a little weird spot we're in right now, and hopefully hopefully it just continues to grow, and we'll see what happens with this production based engines only class, the Super Twins.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that Cody Kopp thing, let's not forget, he did go road racing, but he's not completely unhooked from
Right.
AFT because, well, not only come out and win Daytona 1-2, but he's on the Kenny Roberts Futures. I can't remember what brand of bike it is. It's
a
but
weird brand. Yeah, I don't
yeah,
even know.
yeah. It's a
But they're all-
special made
Yeah.
Moto America bike. And but the team principals are Kenny Roberts and Arnie Wick
hmm
of Fast Track Racing. And of course, Arnie has the twins class or twins bike that Vanderkoy's riding, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, that just opens up the door. If depending on the Moto America schedule with that, that class that he's riding, they're all 390s. They're very similar to a KTM engine, is what I've been told.
They're based on a KTM engine, I believe.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So they're all on, almost the same motorcycle. So we'll see if his schedule allows him to come race some American flat track, and will he ride in the twins class, or will he go on a single? And to go back to the Super Twins class, I'm hearing Aprilia is going to have a bike or 2 real soon. They're working on them. Robbie Bobby, D&D Cycles down there in Florida. they're close. One of their riders got hurt. Dalton Gauthier, I'm hearing he'll
Yeah.
be on one, and I'm hearing possibly even another rider will be on an Aprilia here before too much longer.
Oh, that's awesome. And there's been some hints out there, and I want to touch on this because nobody else has. CF Moto. There's been some hints. I know some people over there.
Yeah.
And I can't confirm or deny. I don't know anything. They wouldn't tell me, and if they did, I couldn't tell anybody. So let's just put it that way. But they're building that 790 motor for the KTM.
Mm-hmm.
So they already have the power plant.
Sure.
Chassis are subjective. There's been a couple of CF Moto bikes custom built for display in flat track trim.
Mm-hmm.
So it wouldn't surprise me to see them drop their toe in somewhere also.
Yeah, I mean, and now is the best time to do it. Like
Oh
we
yeah.
said, I mean, right now is the time to do it. And then also, if you want to talk about another brand that possibly we might see here real soon in the singles class is Triumph. There weren't enough
Yeah.
450 Triumphs homologated before the season started, and we saw it. You and I did doing the Kicker Endurocross series. Triumph came in and won races with Johnny Walker. Unfortunately, they had to leave before the season was over to go back and keep developing that motorcycle. But he's out there on a 250, basically straight out of the factory. I think they put a
Yeah.
pipe and something else on it, and he's out there winning. So Triumph may be involved too. So I think again, we're in a weird spot, but kind of in a positive spot, and definitely in a good spot where this sport can take off again. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just it's to me. I know a lot of your followers and fans of your show are probably different motorsports. I'm okay with that. I love all kinds of racing,
Yeah.
but I think if we could get more of your followers to come to an American flat track race, and then with all these other brands coming, you got a little bit of something for everybody. So I
Yeah.
think again we're in a good spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to throw this out there as far as the Cody Kopp thing. How rad would it be to see Cody Kopp on a black and yellow Kenny Roberts edition Yamaha
Oh yeah, that
at
would be
maybe a couple of miles in a TT or something?
that would be sweet. So I got a little story on that too. So right before I quit, I was on a Yamaha TDM 850. And most of the time we had it the Yamaha blue because that's when the plastics were blue like they are now.
Yeah.
But we had one bike that we did with the yellow with the black checks down the tank in the tail section, and it was a looker, and man, it caught everybody's attention. And I was a nobody. I'm just another guy out there trying to make a main event here and there, and but we caught everybody's attention because we were the only Yamaha out there for a little while, and then they put us in Cycle World magazine and all that fun stuff just because it was unique. And if we
Yeah.
could see Cody Kopp out there on a Yamaha with the yellow and black, and they show up in their yellow and black Kenny Roberts van, woo-hoo,
Ooh,
man, talk
I'm,
about
I,
press day.
yeah, I'm not saying, I don't know anything obviously, but
I don't
boy, it'd
either.
sure be damn cool.
Yeah, that would be awesome
That would be all right. And it make for great TV too,
for
and a
sure.
real huge if something like that was to happen, I think it would be an instant European following to American flat track because,
Definitely,
Kenny Roberts is the king here, but I mean, in Europe,
he's a god.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, there's no other way to put it because he can walk on water over there. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, and before we move off of American flat track, I got to talk about this kid that's won the last two rounds in the singles class. And if you never heard of
Yeah.
his name, you better remember this name. His name is Cage the Rage Tadman, and I've been watching him for a long time, Mad Dog, since he's on 85s, and I think about 2017, maybe 2019, he caught the eye of Roof Systems of Dallas, Texas. They gave him a 450. Well, he's 17 now. He got hurt a couple times last year. He waited until he was 17, till he got to the California rounds to go pro. And he goes out there, not only at Ventura, but also at Chico,
Yeah.
completely different racetracks. Didn't qualify that well at the second one, but goes out there, wins his heat race, wins the challenge race, and wins the main event in both rounds at the California swing. Yes, he's from California. Yes, that that's understandable, but nobody in our sport has ever done that. I mean, now there's 5 people total. I've been told 5. There was 4. Now I've been told 5 that have won their first ever pro debut race in the singles class. But to win the first 2, it's
Yeah.
incredible. It's
Oh, yeah.
incredible.
And you can actually hear the whole download on that on Off the Grid TV podcast, Scottie's podcast,
Yeah.
episode 3.
Well,
Was it 309 or something?
314.
314. Okay.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
such a good kid. And
that was a great episode, by the way.
Still, he's still in high school. He
Yeah.
didn't know to check in a backup bike. He didn't know if he's going to make all the rest of the races. And it's just the things he doesn't know are okay. I mean, it's okay. That's how you learn. He's a first generation flat tracker, where like, you and I are racers. We've been racing our whole families. We know to unload this and do this and, check this bike and check that bike in and just all these things. But man, he is fast. And, he told me on my podcast, he wasn't sure how many races he was going to go to the rest of the year. He's like, well, just maybe Sturgis because I can drive there from California. And shortly after that, he got picked up and Roost Systems going to make sure that he's at every one of the races. They'll be able to fly in, him and his dad and his mom. I think, it's still just gonna be them in the pit area. But now if he's with Roost Systems, maybe he'll have like Cale Kolkman helping out with some suspension, and maybe some of the other guys helping out. And so I think the kid can only get better. Being thrown into the limelight hasn't slowed him down. He had to step out of school before the Chico race to do a radio interview. That didn't slow him down. I mean, it's like you're thrust into it, and some people it rattles their cage. Some people it doesn't bother, and it hasn't bothered him one bit. So hats off to Cage Tadman. He is tied with 6 in the points. He's raced 2 races. He has 2 wins. He's got max points, so he's got 46 points. But Tom Drain is our points leader right now. He hasn't even won a race yet. So, sometimes being consistent is good enough to win, a championship. But that singles class is so tight, and it's, so many different people can go out there and win. Last year, it was the big 3, with Kopp, Drain, and Sadoff winning. Well, you take Kopp out of the equation. We're expecting Drain and Sadoff to take over. And who was going to be the third? Well, Kopp surprised all of us and won rounds 1 and 2. And then Sadoff wins Sonoy, and now Cage Tadman has won the last 2 rounds. And so, out of the 5 races, we had 3 different winners. I don't know if Cage Tadman is going to be, technically one of the big 3. I'm expecting a couple more winners this season. I mean, Bruner is now in the singles class again. He won the Super Twins Rookie of the Year last year. He can get up there and win some races. He's won in the singles class before. Drain's going to win a race before too much longer. Santero is coming. I did a race for Mike Kidd, who actually, long story about him is he's the one that one of the reasons I'm an announcer is because of Mike Kidd. But he had a race in Texas called the Wild West Shootout. And Santero beat everybody down there, and it had a $17,500 purse. And
wow,
Jared Meese showed up on an Indian, and Santero beat him on a 450. So Santero is coming. He's looking for his first singles win. Aiden Roos7 says he's going to win the next round because he's raced race cars at Lucas Oil Speedway. So again, the number of winners could be endless in that singles class. We'll have to wait and see.
Oh yeah, and that's the beauty of that American Flat Track Singles by Kicker class is you've got well over 20 riders consistently.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen way up there in counts, but I feel like on any given night there's probably 14 or 15 guys that could win. And then you go to a mile and anybody in the field that's within 2 seconds of the leader could win.
Yeah,
it's so exciting.
So exciting. The mile racing, like last year, a kid from nowhere, Evan Kelleher, got up there and was in the mix and almost, pulled off the win just because he was small and on a fast bike. And, and I think maybe if he could race that last half a lap over, he might have won it. I mean, but they went across the line 5 wide. And if you just pull out of the draft a little bit too soon, it costs you. If you pull out a little bit too late, it's going to cost
Yep.
you. You got to everything has to happen, and just by racing mile races, that's how you get to know that. And with only 2 Springfield miles and DuQuoin mile on the circuit this year, you know you're not going to get a lot of seat time on a mile. So you got to learn it, and you got to learn it fast, and you got to go back and watch old races and just study and study and study. The old veterans would sit back in like 8th place and just watch the leaders. As long as they didn't break away from the field, you keep that leader right there and stay in that lead draft. You might not even lead into the last lap, last corner coming off of 4. And, that's why mile racing is so fantastic. And of
Oh
course,
yeah.
you're going so damn fast also. But as a rider, it slows down. Everything is it's incredible what a feeling it is. And I'll never forget racing on a mile. My first time was on a 600cc road tax at Springfield, and I think I shut off at the flag stand. I was like, "Oh, I don't have to shut off here." And I grabbed another handful and then
Yeah.
off in the corners. And then before too much longer, you're barely even cracking the throttle going into the corner on a 600. And I don't even know if the 450s are barely letting off either right now. So
Man,
it's
it sure didn't seem like it last year. I swear some of those guys, if they were burping it, it
mhm,
was almost like
boom, yeah,
I
just
would equate it to like an ignition kill button where it
yeah,
just goes pop, just enough to set the bike a little bit.
right,
Um, Man, it was crazy. And you see these giant packs. I love the mile racing. Um, and for a lot of people, in different disciplines, a lot of our listeners, we have a lot of listeners that just want to hear the cool stories and stuff that haven't been motorsports people that are now motorsports people are learning to be. Um, as far as the draft goes, I've run in the draft on pavement, and I've never run in the draft on dirt. I've never been fast enough on dirt to run the draft, but I'm assuming it's very similar when you're, you know, whether you're in second or fourth or fifth, that depending on how big the pack is when you come out, if you stay tight to the bike that you're going past, you're going to get pretty clean air until somewhere around mid bike of the front bike. And if you give yourself a little bit of a gap, and folks, clean air means you don't have near as much air resistance, which allows your bike to accelerate more. You may pick up a mile an hour or two on someone in a big slingshot like that, and you clear yourself. On a mile, is it the same where we would run up tight, and when you got within say half a bike of the leader, you would kind of break away because there was a huge air buffet around the front of the leader.
yeah, it's very similar to that. It depends on how many people are in front of you too. If it's just one guy in front of you, if you're in second, yeah, that's how you do it. And
Yeah,
you swing to the inside or swing to the outside. But and then sometimes you actually even have to let off a little bit to stay right there until you get that draft, because you want to draft as if you're going for the win, you want to draft early on. But if you're going for the pass, you want to wait until you get closer to the next corner, make the draft pass, and it'll push you off into the next corner a little bit hotter. I watched these younger riders that don't know any better, and if they get a double draft, they go flying up in there, and then they'll blow the groove or they'll
yeah,
hit somebody because it feels like you're gaining like 10 more miles per hour, which you're probably not, but it just feels like that. And then when you set up, you can definitely feel the wind slow you down, and the draft is just an amazing thing. And it's like, if you're on the interstate running behind a semi, you can almost let off the gas a little bit in your
oh
car
yeah,
and stick your hand out, and you can it's like there's no wind, but if you
yeah,
pull out, you can feel all the wind. So that's the best way to relate it to the people that have never done it or never been in a drafting situation. You pull up on a semi and you just gain momentum, like if you have the cruise on, you catch them in a hurry, and then you got to swing
yeah,
out and pass. Well, it's the same thing on two wheels, especially on a mile track. I mean, the littler bikes can get a little bit of a draft like that on a half mile, but the mile racing, it's all about seat time. It's all about knowing when to draft, when to let off the throttle, when to stay in line. And just you have to trust every one of those riders out there. and
Yeah.
know that they're not going to do anything stupid like immediately turn to the left. You got to make an arcing corner. You gotta be smooth with your transitions, and I don't even think you hardly even use the brake at all on a mile in either class anymore.
Wow. Yeah. When we were doing it, it would be the further back you were, the longer you had clear air, as long as you were tight to the group.
Hmm.
But if you were, let's say, 4 to 6 or 7 bikes back, you were literally running 80% throttle to stay at the same speed.
Yep.
And when you start pulling out, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I got more horsepower here, you
Right.
know?
Yep.
And but like you said, the problem with that is if you get greedy, um, and you wait too long, at least on the pavement, if you wait too long going into a corner, you're in deep shit. Um, Especially on 80s brakes on,
Yeah.
450-pound bikes.
Yeah, you definitely got to be prepared for all that
Yeah.
situation, and just know when to make those passes. It just comes with seat time. And as an amateur, some of these guys don't even get to ride a mile. I know the flat track grand championships are coming up in DuQuoin, Illinois. Last year the mile rained out. So, this year's pros maybe never even raced a mile before until they go pro. And right now DuQuoin is the only amateur race on a mile that there is. You used to have an amateur day at Sacramento here and there, and DuQuoin. I raced Springfield, but never as an amateur. And you just gotta learn it. You gotta learn it fast and be ready.
Yeah.
Um,
Some of the more exciting. I really love the short track. I'm of course a huge fan of the TTs. Um, but the mile, there's just nothing like it. It
uh,
just, I mean,
I think that's one of the things that makes our sport great too. Like none of the tracks are the same. Like in some of the other series you're talking about, there's 15 different mile and a halves. Well, we have, Lima is a half mile. We have, like I said, we've been on short track so far this season. None of them have been identical. I guarantee you haven't gone to the short track and ran the same gearing or the same setup from any of the short tracks we've been to so far. And now we have another one coming up at Lucas Oil on June the 7th. And that's a brand new one. So you got to rely on your notebook and what track can we compare this to? What gearing we're going to start off with? Because on a flat track bike, you gear your bike for possibly third or fourth gear, depending on what ratio you like in your transmission. On a Rotax, we would gear for third if we could, because then you only had to shift once if you started in second. So the 450s now are more reliable. They're the motocross bikes, so some of those
right.
are actually shifting. Downshifting going in the corner helps you set it into the corner,
Yeah.
and then upshifting coming off the corner. But on the twins, most of the time they try to gear for third or fourth gear. So you look at your notebook and you try to figure out, well, what track is this comparable, and that's how you start the day. And you've got to learn fast because there's 2 practice sessions, then there are 4 laps apiece, and then there's 2 qualifying sessions. Well, those are important. You can't be going out there testing because how you qualify puts you in a starting spot for your heat race, which is
Yeah.
coming up about 2 hours later. So you have to learn fast, and you have to rely on your notebook. You have to rely on your crew chief. And again, going back to Cage Tadman, he never raced at Chico before. He'd raced at Ventura before, but it was totally different than when he raced there before. But he goes to Chico. It didn't matter there was a new track for him. That's what is even more impressive is, not having a flat track background, not having a huge notebook, not having a tuner like Kenny Tolbert or somebody like that in your pit area to say, hey, let's run, a 1543 sprocket and let's gear for third. How he did that is incredible. But, I mean, maybe he picked somebody's brain, maybe he asked somebody where to start, but just only being on a 450 not very many years. You have to be 14 years old or older to race a 450 according to the AMA rule book. So if he got on a 450 at 14, he's only been on a 450 for 3 years. So how big is your notebook for 3 years of racing? And
Right.
he told me he didn't even like car tracks. I'm like, well, you better put that out of your brain right now because
Right.
a lot of the tracks we go to are car tracks, with the exception of the TTs, with the exception of Lima, because that's a pea gravel track, and with the exception of Daytona, all the rest of them we race cars on.
Yeah.
So just it's just incredible what he's been doing. But man, it's just our series is so great, and all the tracks are different. The TT courses, Peoria is a natural terrain down in the valley. Thunder Valley, and then the other TT is on the streets of Sturgis, which
Yeah.
when I was on here last time, we talked about how cool that was, and a whole new fan base got to see us. It was free to get in. We were on Big Fox, that's what they call it when we're just on Fox, not on
Yep.
FS1. And you know, did it showcase our sport? It put our sport in the spotlight. And then what we wanted is people to tune in the next week when we went to the Springfield Mile to see a whole nother element. Same riders, wearing the same leathers,
Yeah.
but going, 140 miles an hour instead of going 40 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour on the streets of Sturgis. So it's incredible to think of how versatile our racers are, and
Oh, yeah.
and some of them are good at TTs, some of them hate TTs, and you can see the difference as soon as we get to one. If you
Yeah.
don't like the front brake or if you don't like jumping, you're not going to be in the top 5. I guarantee you that. But you have to be good at everything. You have to be good at loose tracks, dry tracks, wet tracks, cushion tracks, and of course TT tracks. And it's a little bit of everything for us. Obviously I've been in it my whole life, 52 years, and I think it's the greatest sport on earth. But I just want your watchers, your listeners, your followers to come check one out. I
Oh,
invite you
yeah.
to come check it out.
For sure. And, I want to hit on a couple of things because you said not every track is the same and not every short track is the same, which in this case, we had the season opener doubleheader in Daytona, and that Daytona track was bipolar, man. It was 2 different tracks night to night. Literally, the line was different the second night.
Yeah.
The track surface was different the second night. The first night, and something I want to touch on is at Daytona, because this was huge to me, is out of nowhere, speaking of out of nowhere people, a Kawasaki ended up on the podium both nights, and I can't remember the guy's name right now,
Yeah.
but I'd never heard of him before, and all of a sudden, and then I saw I think it was Friday night, one of the guys was showing me some of the slow-mo replays they had of him, like,
Bouncing.
riding. Yeah, the first night.
Yeah.
Holy cow, that track was so I was posted up down there on turn 4. So I had front row to everything from the kicker booth, but that track was so rough and everybody was struggling. And he was just full on Western cowboy. I don't give a crap. Twist it and hold on and hope I could end up going the right direction at the end,
So his name is Henry Wiles. He just turned 41 a couple of weeks ago, and
Yeah, I remember that. He's 40 years old.
they call him King Henry because he has won the Peoria TT. I think he won it like 16 years in a row, and
Whoa.
it should have been 17. I think, but there's a rain out in there. It's something like that. It's an ungodly number, and Chris Carr was the Prince of Peoria. Well, now it's King Henry because he owns that place. But if you ever want to Google Henry Wiles, he's an incredible man. Last year, he qualified for Loretta Lynn's, which is a motocross track. And
Right.
I think that's why he does good on the rougher tracks because he can hang on to it. He doesn't let it bother him. Talk about rough tracks because our tracks are typically smooth except for when there's a jump. But we only have, like 3 or 4 inches of suspension. They lower the 450s down. The Super Twins are really squatted down because you get them close to the ground. It's more traction. It's easier to hook up. But for a rougher track like Daytona, it does give some guys some fits. And it's just it used to be such a crapshoot because anybody could win down there. But now it seems like Dallas Daniels and Cody Kopp both have that place figured out. They both won 5 of the last 6 races down there.
Crazy.
But other than that, anybody can get up there and get in the mix. Sammy Halbert was on an XR 750 last year. If he wouldn't have started leaking oil, he could have been up there battling for the win. So it doesn't technically matter what kind of motorcycle you're on. It's how you ride in those certain conditions. And Daytona is one of a kind. If you go down to Daytona any other time besides bike week, that track is actually a parking lot. That's where the big RVs park outside turn 1 and 2 for the NASCAR races. And, they dig it back up. They put, I think 30 truckloads of this white dirt. They call it moon dirt. I don't know where they get it from, but they put this white It's not limestone, but it's not. It's got some sand in it. I don't know where they get it, but they want it to look like the old beach, so that's why it's white. And it was rough the first night because nobody raced on it since they put the new truckloads of dirt. So it got better the second night, but again, two completely different lines. But the cream still rose to the top, and we saw the same guys up there, both nights.
Yeah, and the guys did a great job of the AFT guys and that handles the track. Anyway, they they did a great job of getting it of fixing it, if you will. Although, in my opinion, I wasn't riding it, so there was nothing wrong with it. It
Right,
was
right.
great action. Um, but there was a couple of huge ruts in turn 4. I'm sure turn 2 was very similar. Um, and there was a big bump down low in 4, and then probably halfway between turn 4 exit and the start finish, there was a rut and a bump, like there was a soft spot in the track, but they
Mhm.
did an impressive job of getting it ready for the next night. And the only thing I questioned was how wet it was when the program started. And I know there was a lot of riders that questioned that also, because it looked like they had been in a full on Washougal mud race
Yeah.
after that.
And it's just trying different things. And again, go karts normally race there, and the go karts like it hard packed, and it puts rubber down. And I think, honestly, I think we could do it like that one night. Let's leave it hard packed. Let's leave the rubber down, and then the second night come back and dig it up and water it down. I agree. It was a little bit too wet that one time when they went out, and it was a little bit slippery, and a little bit slimy, and it's a dirt. We don't race like anything like it.
Yeah.
And you got to remember that it just sits there all year. I mean, there's go-karts that race there here and there, but most of the time it's just a parking lot. So to put on a race there is incredible. I've heard some rumors about maybe them building a permanent facility right there, but then they're going to have to give up some of their parking for the RVs and the campers and stuff like that. So that may be down the road a few years, but man, just to be at the World Center of Racing at Daytona
Oh
International
yeah.
it's incredible. I'm honored. When I go there and I get to talk on the microphone, it's like you got to think about it. It's like, man, I'm really here. I'm really at Daytona International Speedway. Even though I'm on the outside of turn 1 and 2, you're still on the grounds. You're still on, places where, some of the best racers, motorcycles, and car drivers have raced there. It's really cool to start off the season down there. And for a couple of years, we were ending down there too at the Volusia Speedway, which is where the sprint cars
Yeah.
go. But it's just such a cool place, and sometimes the racing's good, sometimes it's follow the leader, but I think the track makes the racing good because nobody can just walk away from anybody else. Typically, the racing's fairly close, in
Yeah.
both classes.
Well, and, I totally feel what you're saying about Daytona and get what you mean. And for those of our listeners who aren't maybe super motorsports fans, if if you think about whatever is the, not being sacrilegious, but just comparative wise, the holiest of holy places for you, um, that's what Daytona is for a lot of us. And this last year, I actually had the opportunity. I was helping Robbie and Brando out with some signage and stuff like that because I couldn't set up on setup day because the wind was howling. So I was helping those guys, and I actually had the opportunity to walk out onto the backstretch of Daytona International Speedway right at the turn 2 exit. And I mean, I'm still getting goosebumps talking about it and thinking about it. So, I mean, it is the ultimate for us motorsports people. I mean, it's Daytona, right?
Yeah.
It's just crazy. So, um, yeah, and I'm, like I said, Sonoy, I'd never been there before. I got to go there. I missed the California rounds, um, which all our fans know what was going on there as far as Desert Storm and then the Kicker Mexico trip, which was epic, by the way. And I'm so blessed and thankful to have been on that and had the Viking out there with me, and just around 700 of my kicker family for a whole week. It was just amazing. So now we're heading to Wheatland,
Yep.
which we haven't raced at before. American Flat Track hasn't raced at before. Quarter mile dirt oval, I'm assuming.
Yep, high banked. It's probably a quarter mile on the inside. It looks like it's maybe a 3/8 up on top. So it depends on where the line comes in, and that depends on what the track conditions are when we get there. I'm hoping the World of Outlaws were there a few weeks ago, and they were running top to bottom, but they got a rear tire that's wider than this,
Right.
and then laying down a lot of rubber. So usually our flat track lines aren't quite that wide, and if we can have 2 or 3 different lines, I think it'd be great. I'm excited to go to a new facility, a famed facility, Lucas Oil. When your title of the track is Lucas Oil Speedway,
Yeah,
somewhere cool, and hopefully grab some new fans at the same time.
for sure. And it's funny because a lot of my really good friends in the off-road and side-by-side industry last weekend raced short course at Lucas Oil Speedway. And the weekend before, a whole bunch of our friends and recent guest Ryan Beat raced short course trucks at Lucas Oil Speedway. So that leads me, I had this thought, and I want to pitch it to you and ask what you think. What about next year? They do a short course one night and a super TT the next night on the short course off-road track. What do you think?
I think why not? I think what we did out in Arizona has a very a trophy truck track, and I think we went over some of the jumps backwards because the lift wasn't so big, and we kind of cut the course a little bit different. But I don't see why not. I mean, like, the fans are already there. Let's send a couple of bikes out the first night and do a little, show the folks that, hey, we're gonna be here tomorrow night on the same track, but we're doing it on 2 wheels. We're doing it on flat track machines. Come see us. Why not?
Yeah, heck yeah. Let's do a Fox Sports special and
Yeah.
get Scottie Deubler out there on his Rotax on the TT course, Super TT, for
Uh-huh.
a couple of hot laps with the
Yeah.
camera on board.
Yeah.
And let's maybe get Ronnie out there, Ronnie Jones,
Sure.
and who else? Maybe have
Uh,
JD jump in just for the night
Well,
and
it
say, hey,
it had to be somebody that's not racing the next night because you can't get unfair practice. So
right.
Colby Carlisle's in the booth with me now, and he could go out there and ride a bike, and I could go out there and try to keep up with him and put a camera on, like a GoPro on my chest or on my helmet, and see, just see what the track's like, and man, why not?
Yeah, yeah. And Brian Smith.
Oh, Brian Smith. Okay. Brian Smith. So he does a lot of different things, but he doesn't like TT. So he'd probably frown on this one, but he would get out there and do a couple of laps. Maybe I could keep him in my sights.
What about Johnny Lewis on a Royal Enfield?
Yeah. I mean,
how cool would that be? It'd be awesome to have a bunch of you former racers, now celebrities, out there just putting on a demo. Racers are going to be racers.
sure.
I've run into this before where it's like we're not racing. We're on a memorial
Uh-huh.
ride in Moab in side by sides.
Right.
It's not a race. It's a memorial ride. We're all going to stay in line. And as soon as you hit a wide spot in the sand between this, everybody's banging tires and leaving wheel marks on so whatever happens, happens. But boy, it'd
Right.
be exciting to see some of you guys out there. I just think it'd be a darn cool deal and a great way to use a facility. If you're already there and you're already set up partially,
Mhm. Stay for another day.
yeah, why not? Right?
Yeah. Let's cross pollinate. I mean, like, race fans are race fans. I mean, like, we all have our favorites, but if there's racing on TV and I'm flipping through, I'll watch it. I don't
Yeah,
care what it is. I mean, like, if it's got a motor, if they're racing, let's do it. And I think if we could cross pollinate, maybe it'd help their series, and I know it would help our series if we could get even 50 of those people to stick around for the next day, or tune in next week when we're on FS1 or Flow Racing. I think that was part of the reason we went to Flow Racing. We used to be on Fans Choice, and there wasn't just a lot of people on that particular site.
yeah,
But now we're on Flow Racing. The sprint cars are on there. They got local tours on there, and we're getting some of those people tuning into our races just because we're on the same streaming service. So I think every little bit helps, and if we could cross pollinate some off road truck guys to make them flat track fans, I'm for it.
for sure. And to that point, I mean, I have Speed Sport One, Ralph Shaheen's channel, which is free 24-hour motorsports coverage, folks. Check it
Mhm.
out. Speed Sport One. Um, I have it on speed dial on my 70-inch, 75-inch TV. And sometimes I just turn it on and whatever's on, I mean, it
Yeah.
could be anything from Isle of Man to, Saturday night hobby stock racing in God only knows where.
Mhm.
Um, but it's just motorsports. Like, I don't care, whatever it is.
Right.
I
Exactly.
want to hear it. I want to see it. I want to feel it. And the more we get people to tune in and to follow it, the better staying power our industry has to continue to grow industry wide. Um, RJ Anderson, really good friend of mine that, I mean, I sponsored him before he was old enough to drink when he was racing for Polaris. And, now he owns a short course truck team, and he did an interview not too long ago. And it was short course racing is the greatest sport you've never heard of. And, that's really sad. I mean, it's great, but it's sad because a lot of people haven't. And the more we can get people exposed to all kinds of motorsports, but the cross pollination, like you were talking about, would be it's just going to drive all the sports fan viewership up more. Um, and to that point, Cole and I pitched after Daytona. How cool would it be to do a Daytona doubleheader with one night of short track and one night of TT on the infield at Daytona Speedway?
Yeah, we need to do that. When I was growing up, they always raced the Houston Astrodome, and that's exactly what they did. They do a TT the first night and a short track the second night at the Houston Astrodome, which was the eighth wonder of the world.
Right.
AMA Pro Racing was there back then, and my grandpa raced there. We would go down there and watch, and such a cool way to start the season. And when the Astrodome went away, they started racing in Daytona to start off the season, which makes sense. That's where NASCAR starts off, and it's the world center of racing. But if we could do a TT one night and a short track the next night, why not? I mean, you basically run the same motorcycle. You just put a front brake on it and, make some adjustments to your suspension. But I mean, the facility can hold us. I mean, the track is there. I don't know what the infield's like if they'd have to bring in some truckloads of dirt, but obviously they can find, a way to do that. So I'm all for that for sure.
I think it'd be cool. And the other thing is it's not short track to start the season, or in
Right.
this case, short track, short track, short track,
Short track.
short track, short track, short track.
Uh huh.
You would start the season a way that maybe they haven't ever started before. And you might end up with some pretty interesting drama, in the first two or three races, short track, TT, short track. I mean,
Yep.
if
Yeah.
you were to do something like that, it would be based on this year's schedule. It'd be like short track, TT, short track, short track, short track, short track, super TT,
There you go.
and then half mile.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be sick.
Yeah, I wish there were more half miles on the schedule. I think, a lot of the car tracks have gone away from the half miles
Yeah.
because they're all going to 3/8 miles. That way you can go down the road and not have to switch your rear end gear if you're a race car driver. And I understand that. It's it's shorter to maintain as a track promoter, as a track owner. 3/8 mile, which doesn't sound like it's not that much shorter than a half mile, but if you do 100 laps, in the water truck or the grader or
Yeah,
the spreader or whatever, it all adds up. So I mean, I understand the 3/8 mile. Unfortunately, it's called a short track for us, and I don't know if they could. I don't since it's been called a short track for since the sport was you know started. I don't know if it'd be fair to change it to a short track, but maybe changing the distance of the short track, like maybe a quarter mile or smaller is a short track, and a 3/8 mile or bigger is a half mile or a medium track, or I don't know. It's just
yeah,
it's weird because then you get into the wording, and then the diehard fans are
sure.
going to throw a fit again too. But you
Yeah,
know, having 9 short tracks this season is a lot. But if you look at them, every one of them are different. The only one we
yeah,
raced at is well, we're going to race the Sturgis short track, which is a true short track at Jackpine Gypsies, where the rally started. We're going to race there twice, August 8th and 9th, which is going to be awesome. But so we got 2 there, you got 2 at Daytona, but all the rest of them are completely different than each other. So I don't know. It's wording, it's the length of the tracks, but
yeah,
again, they're all different. They're all exciting in a different way.
for sure. And they all require their own, with as different as they are. I mean, you're talking different setup. Guys are going to have to figure stuff out, especially like Lucas Oil, where they've never been.
Mhm.
Um, that's going to be perhaps again an advantage for was it Cage the Rage?
Cage the Rage, because
Yeah,
he's got the same notebook that everybody else has, which is nothing.
right.
You go
Yeah,
there and he could win 3 in a row, but sometimes I mean, he did the same thing at Chico, which Chico might be comparable. It's about probably the same, maybe the same length, but it's probably gonna be different dirt. Probably gonna have a lot of rubber in it because they race a lot of cars there. But whoever figures it out fastest usually does the best, and we'll see.
yeah.
I mean, everybody's got the same notebook going in, so we'll see.
Well, and speaking of racing cars, there, I jump real quick. We're about out of time here because
All
I
right.
know you got dinner plans, and I don't want to hold those up. But in Sonoy, I saw a couple of things I had never seen before, um,
All right.
and one, I had not been on that good old Georgia clay racetrack ever in my life. And when I walked out there on whatever day it was, Thursday, onto the track when I arrived, it looked like a lake bed in the middle of the Mojave Desert. I mean, it was dry, it was crunchy, it was
Mm-hmm.
breaking up under your feet. And that track owner, and I gave him super, super giant kudos for the job he did on that track. They did on that track. It was amazing race facility. It was fast. For almost everyone, it appeared really safe. Um, and but I made sure and talk about the weirdest things that you just don't think of. And one was the 2 Ford Explorers with the balloon ag tires
Mm-hmm.
dragging tractor tires behind them, or loader tires, around the racetrack um, to dry it out and lay a little rubber down. It's almost like they know the track so well, they know they can put a shit ton of water on it and then squeeze it out, and the way it'll dry
Like a
up.
squeegee. Yeah, like a
Yeah.
squeegee. So
It,
the Ford Explorers had race car tires on, again,
yeah.
about as wide as a sprint car's rear tire, which is probably, 3 foot wide or 2.5 foot wide or whatever.
Just floaters.
Yeah, and they're just
Yeah.
big old balloon tires, but they just pack the track in. And the dirt that they have on there, Georgia clay is usually red. This is a gray clay.
Yeah.
And when I went out there Saturday afternoon, like early before bikes even touched the track, I was skidding my foot in there, and it was sticking just like a basketball court. It was that sticky.
Wow.
It did get slick later on at night, but there's more to the story. I mean, I don't know if you did you see the race car go out there? Is that kind
Yes,
of your
I did.
second part of it?
That's where I was going after that.
Man, that
Now
was cool.
that is something I had never ever seen, but I've seen, up in Whitehorse, Yukon Territory, Canada, we had a 3/8 mile dirt track that my dad would wrap up church and my mom would have packed a picnic basket and we go out to the racetrack. My dad would preach Sunday morning and go out and work on the local truck stop mechanics dirt car
Yeah.
uh, in the afternoon, and we'd have picnic. But I've seen the promoters, the track owners, take their personal race car out to feel the track out, but I've never seen one take the car out to prep the track.
So that was Bubba Pollard, and he owns the racetrack, and he is a big name in late models. He has, it was an ungodly amount of late model wins. It's over 100. It may be
Wow.
200. It's a ton of late model wins. He's tried his hand in NASCAR, but he took his own one of his old late models that sits in the middle of the racetrack. He took it
Yeah.
out there and really widened up the groove and smooth it, those big fat tires smoothed it out. But there's more to that story too. So back in the day when Ronnie Jones put on the Oklahoma City half mile here in town, my dad wrangled up 3 sprint car drivers, let them come in the race for free. We used to have a short track inside the half mile. So on the quarter mile, they would sit there. And then during our breaks, we'd send them out there. They took the top wings off and we told them, go out there and put your front tires on the groove, put your back tires just off the groove and get completely sideways in the corner. Well, what that does is it widens out the groove. It
Oh,
would
yeah.
be like 10 feet wide. So you can go 2 or 3 bikes wide into the corner at the same time. And it gave you, the rubber goes down. So then you got ultimate traction. So it's happened back in the day. I wish we could see it more. And I'm glad that Bubba Pollard went out there and showed that we can still do that. Maybe we'll see that more because if the groove is only that wide,
Yeah.
that's only wide enough for one bike. If it's that wide, maybe somebody might get risky and stick it in there and try to pass somebody. But if it's 10 feet wide or 6 or 8 feet wide, you can go side by side in the corner, and that makes for better racing. That way you don't have to follow anybody in the corners because if you're following, you're not passing anybody.
Right.
So sometimes our sport is a contact sport. We'd rather not be, but on short track racing that, sometimes that's how you have to pass somebody. But if the groove's wide enough, maybe we won't see as much contact and we see more passing. So I'm glad you pointed that out to your listeners because that
Yeah.
was awesome when he went out there and got that late model sideways in the corners.
Oh, yeah. And to what you were saying, it made a huge difference in the line on the track
Mhm.
and the race line during racing. There were people working everywhere. I mean, there was high groove, there was low groove, there was Saturday night slide jobs going on.
There was a lot.
There was a lot of action through not like just the heats. You would think they're going to settle down in the main and run in line and kind of no.
Yeah.
There was what 2 laps to go. They were 3 and 4 wide going down the front stretch and 3 wide through the corners.
Yeah, I'm glad that
Popping
track.
all over.
Yeah, I'm glad that track's on our circuit. We've raced a few other tracks in the area. We raced at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. We did Atlanta TT. We raced at Dixieland, which was another nice, neat little track. But I think we found a home right there
Yeah.
at Sonoy. It's out in the middle of a field, out kind of in the middle of nowhere, but it's still technically the Atlanta area, so it's not too far away for the fans. And man, I like that track and. I wouldn't even be opposed to a double header there either because there's a lot of fans there.
Oof.
I think if we go 2 nights in a row at the same facility, I mean, people are already there. It might make it more appealing to fans to travel in.
Yeah.
But Friday night races are typically tough. I know, some series get away with it because they've been doing it for such a long time, but I think we might as well try it with our series.
Sure. And that, it was man, that just had me excited just talking about him pitching the car sideways and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
The other side of that is for the race fans, it's not that we don't love to see your face and the B-roll stuff that you guys shoot. and the informative stuff that you guys shoot. But I would way rather watch a sprint car or a late model go around the track than a replay from Daytona on the screen while you're on a break.
Yeah.
And to your point, as far as widening and working the track early on, would have been probably second practice that night, second qualifying that night, maybe. There was a lot of guys running down the front stretch, and they were carrying so much speed that they were, matter of fact, in one case, a guy laid it down into the air fence in turn one, or one or two guys did in a row. But you could see they were just overshooting. It's like, whoa, shit, I'm out of racetrack. And after he did that,
That stopped. Yeah.
yeah, those guys were able to drive it in probably as hard as I've seen anybody run it in, and run it in on each other. Like I said, 2, 3 plus wide.
Yeah, and it helps that the track is banked. You know, like on a flat track, you
Oh,
can't
yeah.
run it in the corner as deep. You have to get on the brakes a lot earlier. But when the track is banked, it kind of holds you in. It was skittery at the top, and that's why a couple of those guys got off the racing line. Just as soon as you did, you just went straight up to the air fence because there was no
Yeah.
traction up there. So I think that's why
No.
they soaked it down. That's why they packed it in with those, the Ford Explorers and dragging those tires. And then, of course, when they brought that race car out there, man, that just made that place. It like turned on a light switch. It just made it night and day difference.
Yeah, for sure. That was a great program, and I'm bummed I missed Ventura because it is to me such an amazing location. Um, where I set up at Ventura, I don't get to see the racing anyways,
Right.
but the location is just unbelievable. I have yet to go to Chico, so hopefully maybe next year I'll get to see Chico, depending on scheduling.
Sure.
And I'm super excited to go to the Lucas Oil Raceway because I've it again is another one of those holy ground places, Um, as being involved in off-road motorsports now as long as I have been, it's like, I've seen races forever from there on MAV TV or Fox
Sure.
Sports or, whatever. And it's like, I'm actually going to be able to put my feet in that dirt, and
Yeah.
that's a huge thing. So, um, I'm excited. I think for like you were saying, all these short tracks, there's a lot of people going, "Oh, yay, more short tracks," or way too many short tracks. I saw all the hater comments, but like you said, they're all different. And, I mean, I don't mind the short tracks as long as the surface is racy.
Right.
I don't want to see I don't want to see 24 bikes in a row
Following the
make
leader.
yeah, making quarter mile laps,
Right.
for 20 minutes.
Sure.
Like on the other side of that, when you get in a situation like that, um, maybe some of those guys need to have less patience or take more risk and just hang it
Go for
out
it.
there.
Go for it.
Because like you said, if you're riding around in second place and right behind the guy in front of you, you're not going to win the race.
That's right. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So with that, man, dude, that flew by. I just love it when you're on, but we never seem to have enough time. Um, so insightful and so informative, and we jumped all over, but
That's all right.
holy cow, what a good time! And there's so much information here, and to go back to the intro, the State of the Union of flat track in the United States of America and worldwide, because you have your pulse on flat track all the way around the world. Um, what grade would you give it right now? Are we moving up? Are we growing? Are we
It nothing's perfect except for my mom, and she'll tell you that. But I think we are moving up. It's almost like what you said a little bit ago. It's with your buddy in the short course circuit. It's still a sport that it's still not mainstream. I don't know if it'll ever get to be mainstream, but it's a generational sport. It's a hand me down sport, but we're starting to get like the Cage Tadman, like Cameron Smith, how they get into it. They're both of them because they're neighbors. So if their neighbors would tell, if you tell your friends, if you go to a race, bring somebody new. That's my challenge to everybody. But the racing right now is phenomenal. There's not a dominant brand anymore, which you can hate on that if you want to. Harley dominated for 40 some years. Um, but the racing is just as good as ever. There may not be as many bikes as there were before, but at local races, we're getting over 100 bikes in Texas. We're going to have the flat track grand championships are coming up in DuQuoin. They're going to have a ton of riders there, for a 7 day in a row, races every single day. There are races out there. You have to look
Yeah.
around. I try to share them on my podcast. I try to talk about them. I try to, people don't pay me to do that. I go announce races wherever I can. The Lodi Cycle Bowl, for instance, one of the places that needs to be on your bucket list. There's a square deal racetrack up in New York. That's on my bucket list. I haven't made it there yet, but there's tracks out there. They're all different. They're all fun, and the flat track family is amazing. To get back to your question, the grade, I think it's got to be a solid B. There's always room for improvement. I think it's in a growing phase. The rider, like I said, the rider count on the national level is down. I know some of the haters are going to hate on that. But with this new class, with the new production based engines, give us a year, give us 2 years. I think that class is going to be huge. I think we're getting more brands involved. We already have, like you said, eight brands in the main event not too long ago. The top 3 in points are 3 different brands. We're climbing. We're going up that ladder. It's not as
Yep.
fast as we would like it, but it's hard. It's hard to do that, and just getting more and more people involved is what we need. So I appreciate you having me on the podcast. I love what you're doing. It takes an army, and
Yeah.
people like you leading the way, people getting followers, gaining traction. That's what we need. So keep doing what you're doing, and I can't wait to see it, Lucas Oil.
Yeah, I'm super stoked to see you again. I really appreciate you jumping in and just hitting the highlights. I mean, folks, Scottie Deubler is not just another pretty face. I mean, he's
Not pretty at all.
he's smart. He's got the background to back it up, and you're everywhere. Ice racing. I mean, if there's motorcycle racing involved, and I would bet, given the opportunity, you would jump on any kind of car racing also.
Yeah.
'Cause
So
you just love motorsports.
I do. So my second passion is sprint cars. My dad, went to high school with Doug Wolfgang, who was one of the best sprint car
Oh
drivers
yeah.
back in the day before he got hurt. And you know, I, I guess I regret not trying a sprint car when I was younger, but I went 2 wheels just because my grandpa and my dad, my aunts, my uncle, and my cousin all raced flat track. So it was just like that was our destiny or to go flat tracking. And I'm lucky because I'm still involved in it. But when I did Flat Out Friday earlier this year in Milwaukee, where the Milwaukee Bucks play, polished concrete short track, Chatty Maddie did the pit interviews, and I got to work alongside her. Well, she does a couple of series for sprint cars up in Wisconsin, and she's getting me in the booth here real soon. So
Yes.
I'm going to do some sprint cars. I've done midgets before and midget race cars.
Yeah.
Micro midgets and all kinds of different cars at a local track here called Fort Cobb. But I've never announced a real full on sprint car race. So I'm excited for that. I would love to do the High Limit Series or the World of Outlaw Series. I'd have to give up American Flat Track, but you can't take it away from me completely. But yeah, I announce whatever I can. I did a kicker monster truck race not too long ago in New Mexico, and I've got another monster truck show coming up for a different promoter coming up real soon, and again in New Mexico again. So, um, to use Ralph Shaheen's line, if you're paying, I'm saying. So
Yeah.
I'll be there.
And we didn't even get to that as far as broadcast booth changes, but we'll get on that next time.
All right.
I do like your new sidekick. Um, I do miss Ralph also, and fortunately we've become friends through American Flat Track, so we've been able to keep in touch and
Sure.
of course get to see sis Kristen.
Kristen B.
Um, and yeah, and of course having Ryan on, um, we may or may not have heard a couple of stories on her when she was young,
Right.
but we've been blessed here with incredible guests, and you're certainly one of them. And your passion for motorsports, you you can't help but be excited, and I love that. And you're so great at getting people engaged and entertaining them. Um, I just really appreciate that. I'm looking forward to seeing you at the legendary Lucas Oil Speedway. It's gonna be crazy. I got a daughter's wedding to handle just before that. So um but yeah, man, I'm super excited, and I'm getting to go to a lot of tracks I've never been to this year, because I'm doing more American flat track races for Team Kicker, and their relationship continues to grow with American Flat Track, and I'm grateful for that. And all you guys make it so much better. We get those. I always explain it when I'm in download meetings. I'm like, there's these intangibles, like the things that your sponsorship check doesn't buy, that we get because of the relationships that we have. And part of that is you guys tolerate me more weekends a year than ever. So I'm looking forward to that. And now Johnny Lewis wants me to jump in on one of his slide schools.
Yes.
And,
Do it.
I'm,
Do it.
I'm, hopefully the Viking isn't caught up in listening to these, but I've already told him I would. We
Good.
were we were gonna try and do it at Sonoy, but the timing just didn't work out. I think he ended up with a full class that day.
Mhm.
So, but now I've got Gene behind me going, get out there,
Do it.
and so we got to make that happen at some point this year. But man, Scotty, we need to make sure at Instagram at Scottie Deubler
Mhm.
43.
No, just Scottie Deubler.
Okay, at Scottie Deubler and at off the groove _ TV.
Just on Off the Groove TV. Yep.
Off the groove TV. Okay.
Off the Groove.
Yeah. And man, if you want to hear some of the more detailed stuff, um, I found your post Sonoy interview with the kids that had the hard get offs,
Oh, yeah,
kind of got
man.
together.
Oof.
I found that it was great to hear their voices, because
Yeah.
I'll tell you, when the helicopter took off, I didn't hear it come in, but when it took off, man, I'm not gonna lie, I was praying
Yeah.
hard. I was really worried about those guys, and I mean, we all know the dangers that we choose to do every day,
Yeah.
and um but it's always scary when you have a situation like that. But thankfully, man, they're both on the mend, and isn't one of them's I can't
Yep.
remember who, but one of them's going to plan on being back for Lucas Oil.
So Braden Fanders, the 83, didn't miss a single race, which was
Yeah.
incredible. He's the one that was in the worst shape that we
Yeah.
thought. He's the one that helicoptered away. And then Dalton Gautier broke an arm on one side, an arm on the other side, fingers on here, toes. Uh, punctured lung or a bruised lung and a concussion. He's the one supposed to be back at Lucas Oil, and he might be on that Aprilia. If not, if the Aprilia's not done, he'll be on a 450. But
Wow.
just
Yeah.
it's crazy. I love our sport, and I'm glad I get to see you again. It's been a little while, and I see you not only at American Flat Track, but I'll also get to see it. Kicker Enduro Cross. I get to
Yeah.
see some other events here and there. So you're one of my friends, and thanks for having me on the podcast, man. I appreciate you.
For sure. And hopefully some kicker monster trucks later this year. We'll see how that goes.
I hope so. I hope so. The dates are conflicting with a lot of my events, and
Yeah, me too.
Karen's told me to look at the schedule and keep looking at the schedule. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. The okay, so Off the Groove podcast, Off the
Mhm.
Groove TV on Instagram. Now I know from listening to the podcast, and I'm probably 2 episodes behind now,
Okay.
because I haven't made a road trip or flown anywhere, but I'll get caught up next week.
Yep.
But you have some new sponsors behind the podcast, and you need to give them a shout out. Plus your good Patreons and all that for sure, man.
So I have a Patreon page. People can go just and give $1 a month. They can give up to $50 a month, or they can make a one-time deposit just to support the podcast. That's on Patreon. And then just picked up FRA Trust for your future planning, your investment planning, and then also Hudson Roofing, which is a good friend of Roof Systems of Dallas, Texas. It's Jim Hudson Roofing, sponsoring our podcast now. And if you use code A1R, you can save 10% off at FRA Trust or at Hudson Roofing. And that goes for your customers too. I mean, or you not your customers, your listeners. They can be customers of those two, and to save 10%. It's just their way of giving back to the sport, FRA Trust and Hudson Roofing. So I appreciate that. And of course, all my other sponsors, Light Shoe, TDFJ, Tom Duma Fine Jewelers, and just all the people, all Pro Plates, who makes number plates. I sell the 43 number plates, and I don't have one handy right now where I'd show you, but just all the people that help me get around. I appreciate all of you. I was looking for a sticker, but I don't have a 43 sticker here, but it's my racing number plates, and I sell those too. So it's just really cool, and I just keep spreading the word about Flat Track.
Yep, absolutely. And they can find your merchandise by clicking the link in your podcast, correct?
Yeah, or they can just send me a message, and I can. I need to get I'm working on having some merchandise for sale. I'm working on a new logo, so that's stuff's in the works. I did T-shirts a long time ago. I'm thinking about bringing some T-shirts back. I did some koozies. I've always got stickers. If you see me at a racetrack, holler at me for some stickers. But I sell my number plates for $30 plus shipping, and then I've got some pendant necklaces from Tom Duma Fine Jewelers in silver or gold. So I got all kinds of options. So just hit me up, send me a message, and I'll get back to you.
Yeah, I need to start building some Scottie Deubler stickers on the side of that toolbox right there here in my studio. So
I need to make that happen. I swore I had a 43 sticker, but I don't have one in this.
I think when I hit Lucas Oil, I'll have some after show stickers for you. So
all right, good.
Yeah.
Just
got some done. So
cool.
Yeah, man. It's always great to have you on, Scottie. I appreciate it. I know you got to get out and get some dinner. There was something else I was going to bring up. Oh, I know what it was.
Bring it.
I want to try out. I want to try out right now.
For what?
You're listening to Off the Groove with Scottie Hollywood Deubler.
There you go. All right, I'll put you on the introduction list.
How was that?
That was great, man. I'm gonna have to record that. Maybe when I see you at Lucas Oil, I'll record that one, and I'll put you on one of the episodes coming up. So it's funny because my daughter did it for a long time, and then I think Carter did it for a while, who I used to be partners with, and then I've had a few different people doing it. Right now, it's a friend of mine named Tim Humphreys, and they call him Big Hump Daddy Racing. But I'll put you on there.
I was like, I've listened to him. I'm like, oh man, that would be. I would love to do an intro.
Let's do it.
I could even use my my Saturday night short track announcer voice You're listening to Off the Groove with Scottie Hollywood Deubler.
There you go. You pay for
I
the
love
seat,
it.
but you only need the edge.
Yeah, there you go. I love it. Anyway,
Thanks,
Scottie,
Mad
thank
Dog.
you so much, brother. I appreciate you. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
You bet. Dude, always so good to have Scottie on. I mean, he's a spark plug on 180,000 volts, you know?
He's a good-looking, passionate man, and we got to talk sprint cars and, you know, everything that's good in the dirt.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. Yeah, I really appreciate him being on. And while we're appreciating things, Cole, I appreciate you. What do you got this week?
Man, this week, Memorial Day, Memorial Day weekend. So everybody, just remember what it's all about and enjoy our freedoms and think about those who don't have the luxuries we do, and put some damn hot dogs on the grill, would you?
Yeah. Yeah. Remember that the barbecue and beer weekend that you're having was paid for by the life of one of our U.S. service people. So, great respect for all our service people around the world, veterans, MIA, KIA, and that's Memorial Day is to remember those for sure. So, and thank you to our first responders who we always know will be busy on Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah,
Yeah,
couple fingers gone. Yeah,
for sure. Other than that, you got anything else?
man, nothing right now. Hopefully get to go play in the dirt in about 2 weeks. So we'll see. It'll be hot, but I'm itching to go out to my favorite place.
Awesome. Keep me posted.
Will do.
With that, Cole, do the speech and
Hey,
then
make
we'll
sure to
close
rate,
it out.
review, and subscribe on your favorite streaming platform.
One more time without my interruption.
Make sure to rate, review, subscribe on your favorite streaming platform.
Yes, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Speaking of beautiful things, how beautiful are our amazing partners and sponsors? Kicker Performance Audio, Kicker Marine Audio, Kicker Premium Audio. Find them online, kicker.com, on Instagram at Kicker Audio, Facebook, Kicker, and every other Tuesday night live on their TV show, Kicker Unmasked Live, on Facebook, Instagram, I believe X, and their YouTube channel. Bomber Eyewear. I say it that way because they are the final statement in eyewear that you need. They've got prescription, they've got safety, they've got polarized. They float with over 40 styles of frames, and I don't even know how many lens combinations. Bomber safety eyewear, Bomber badass eyewear, Mad Dog approved, bombereyewear.com. Look them up while you're there. Fill your cart. When your cart's full, type in that discount code MADDOG20, Mad Dog 20. Save yourself a little scratch and let them know we sent you. For the toughest glasses in the world, bombereyewear.com. Assault Industries, covering all your premium off-road and power sports and motorsports accessory needs, side-by-sides, ATVs, apparel, gloves, tools, whatever you need. Look them up, assaultind.com, or on Instagram at assaultutv. Of course, the Premix Podcast, our man Cole, shouting out with that beautiful voice, able to hire him for your bar mitzvah, your whatever, your event, your race, whatever you need. Look him up on Instagram at the Premix Podcast. That's the at symbol, ThePremixPodcast. Shutter and World Media, our girl taking care of all of our video editing needs, all of our video production needs, can take care of all your video production and still production needs, from post production all the way up to pre-production, everything in between. Shutter and World Media. Find her on Instagram at Shutter and Whirl. Click the link in her bio to see her repertoire of incredible work. Of course, Hey Geeks Marketing keeps our social media rolling, keeps our website rolling, can build websites for you, build social media campaigns, build social media sites for you. All you got to do is yell, Hey Geeks, or do it the easy way. Check the webs, heygeek.com, or on Instagram at Hey Geeks Marketing. With that, I want to say, God bless you, our fans. God bless our first responders. God bless our veterans. God bless our military personnel around the world. God bless America. Mad Dog out.